Welcome to Focus Quebec this afternoon. We have a long list of artists who will be presenting their work. Maybe you have seen in the corridors there are lots of work that are presented, and some of these are presented by ELEKTRA, who promotes and presents artists and works from Quebec in Canada. So some of these artists will present here, and some of the artists presenting here are showing their works out in town at other galleries. So first of all, about language. If we were in Quebec, this would be all in French. Or maybe we would do one sentence in French and one in English. And it will be a little bit like this, but we have gathered so that most of the French presentations are in the beginning, and then we continue, for the most part, in English. So it's easier for the lovely interpreters who are doing such a great work to make this accessible to everyone. And yeah, but if you need the translators, please go and get the translators. And yeah, so we will have 2.5 hours of artist talks. And there won't be breaks, there will be small breaks for questions, and that's about it. Then we will have a 15 minutes break before we finish with a panel on artificial intelligence / artificial life, where we will see how these two disciplines can talk to each other and maybe talk about something about life and intelligence. And that will be between 5 to 6, and that panel will be in English. So to begin, I would like to present Alain Thibault, who is ELEKTRA's artistic director. And Alain will talk about ELEKTRA and digital art in and around Quebec.
Merci. Je vais...
Now let me thank Niels Aziesmanov from Quebec for this invitation to Quebec, allowing us to have this very numerous there's so many representatives from Quebec, and I would like also to thank your deputy who worked very hard on this Congress, and obviously we also enjoyed the support from the government from Quebec, the Arts Council, the Ministry in charge of International Relations and French and Francophonie, and of course the General Delegation from Quebec in Paris, and more particularly Pascal Cos, who is in charge of digital arts here in Paris. Well, I think I haven't forgotten anyone. Now, ELEKTRA's team worked very, very hard. We are a small team. I'd like to thank Florentine Vues, more particularly in charge of production, Ida Toff, Manon Jus for the communications, or Ima For, who is very much involved in virtual production and who also has a presentation here. Now, ELEKTRA is dedicated to digital and electronic arts. It was created, I created it in 1999. And here is a first film, a short film to describe ELEKTRA's mission, assignment, and the artists it represents.
ELEKTRA's mission is to present and promote to the public and in the sectors of contemporary art, creation and innovation, works and artists who combine art and new technologies. The organization conducts 5 main activities in Montreal: the ELEKTRA Festival, the International Digital Art Biennial, the International Marketplace for Digital Art, the ELEKTRA Gallery, and the ELEKTRA Virtual Museum. The ELEKTRA Festival was created in 1999. It is an annual cultural event focused on performance art. The International Digital Art Biennial was created in 2012. Its main exhibition is presented at Arsenal Contemporary Art Montreal. The International Marketplace for Digital Art was created in 2007. It is a professional networking activity including conferences, presentations, and panels between artists and international presenters. The ELEKTRA Gallery opened in March 2019. The gallery supports the emerging Montreal artistic community and values discoveries with an emphasis on premieres and exclusivities. ELEKTRA is an ambassador and exporter of talents from Quebec and Canada to Europe, East Asia, and the Pacific region. ELEKTRA was also the producer of the Digital Quebec events in Europe. In 2020, we also launched our online collection on Google Arts and Culture for archival purposes and to allow visitors from around the world to access our past exhibitions as a complement to our 3D spaces and social media. In 2020, ELEKTRA has developed its virtual offer. 3 exhibitions at Hyundai Motor Studio in Seoul and Metamorphosis 2020 at Arsenal Contemporary Art Montreal have been modeled in 3D format and made available on the web. The ELEKTRA Virtual Museum was launched in 2022. This museum complex includes 3 pavilions. Its particularity is to present works in their entirety in the best possible visual quality. Please take a look at our latest promotional videos. Thank you.
Voilà. Donc,
initially, in 1999, ELEKTRA was really focused on performance, performative sides, but I thought that maybe I could do more, and this is why I created the festival. So in 2012, this was the first biennial. We received French artists. In 2014, Brussels, French-speaking Belgian artists. Then Germany. 2020 was cancelled. 2021 was Japan, and 2022 focused on East Asian artists. Now I'd like to share with you the promotional videos of the last 4 editions to give you an idea of the sort of artists we introduce. Here we go.
Donc la thématique était fait par les machines pour les...
Art designed and manufactured by machines and for machines. This was the main theme of the exhibition. As you probably understood, the 2018 theme was Sing the Body Electric. And Peter Weibel was our guest speaker, guest at the time. He's 2025.
Mutation digitale. Digitale.
Finally, the last one, Inferno.
Et pour terminer, c'est un projet qui est né pendant la pandémie.
Finally, something that was designed during the pandemic, because we put the emphasis on virtual art, creating galleries, and in June 2022, we opened the ELEKTRA Virtual Museum, and here's what it looks like.
The ELEKTRA Virtual Museum, EVM, offers you a unique 3D immersive experience, which goes even further than the virtual exhibitions already offered by ELEKTRA. The ELEKTRA Virtual Museum is a unique virtual space that reinvents itself through innovative annual exhibitions. The EVM goes far beyond the traditional definition of a museum, as it is accessible everywhere by everyone. By building this museum, ELEKTRA aims to share its 20 years of expertise in the field of media arts and offer visitors a unique experience. Its vocation is to encourage and promote research and contemporary creation, to support artists from here and elsewhere, as well as to democratize access to digital arts. We created a website which envelops the EVM experience. Here you will find information about the exhibition, artists and artworks showcased in the museum. Discover works of art that exist in the real world, specially modeled and adapted for display in this 3D museum space, an unusual architecture that is itself part of the singular experience you will live. Get ready to live a polymorphic, cognitive, immersive, visual, and sound experience. Here, architecture is freed from the constraints of the real world, from the calculation of forces, from the scarcity of materials. The absence of technical and physical constraints allowed us to concentrate on aesthetic and purely formal research. Between dream and reality, the ELEKTRA Virtual Museum and its exhibitions are constantly reinvented. Soon the EVM will be populated with visitors and also non-player characters, which will generate an even more dynamic environment. Future developments will include the integration of a multiplayer system. This feature will allow us to host exhibition openings, guided tours, discussion forums, and networking opportunities with other visitors from around the world and experts in different fields. Our virtual museum will also be a professional meeting place for creators and buyers, allowing art collectors to discover new artists and purchase artworks from our collection online. Lastly, our future ambitious goal is to move this experience from your screen to a virtual reality experience so participants can be completely immersed into the museum. Please take a tour of the ELEKTRA Virtual Museum to convince you of our expertise in this field.
ELEKTRA Virtual Museum.
Et voilà, merci beaucoup.
Yeah, here we are.
Not actually artists. This is Laurent, Rozencwajg, and André, Racette from the Council of Art and Letters in Quebec, who will be speaking about the organization and the different programs that they have to offer.
Merci.
Thank you very much. We're so happy to be with you today in Paris for IZA 2023. First, allow me to thank IZA, Niels, and the whole team of Cube Garche for this invitation. I'm also very grateful for this special invitation to Quebec this year. Now, Quebec is represented here through ELEKTRA, and we are very happy. We supported ELEKTRA for all Quebec-focused related activities. As Alain was explaining, we also had support from the Ministry of Telecommunications and International Relations and the General Delegations in Paris. So I would like to pay tribute to Pascal Cos for his support. Now, in a few minutes, let me tell you about our mission at the Council of Arts and Letters in Quebec. What do we do? Who are we? We are a governmental organization that was created in 1994 in the aftermath of the first cultural policy implemented in Quebec. We report to the Ministry of Culture and Communications. So we are under their authority, and we are managed by a board of 12 board members from the art world, but also independent board members. Now, the Council of Arts and Letters is based or is tailored and mirrors the organizations you find in the UK. The council organizes the grants, and we bring together artists and different culture and art world representatives to guide us in our decisions, to subsidize culture. And so we're here to support research, experimentation, dissemination, circulation in some 12 different artistic disciplines throughout Quebec, but also abroad. This is to make sure that we promote artists from Quebec. Now, here's a very short film explaining how dynamic the art world is in Quebec. Now, I told you there are some 12 different artistic disciplines we are involved in. The multidisciplinary arts, the dance, theater, visual arts, digital arts, cinema, video, art, craftsmanship, among other things. We have a budget of $195 million distributed among the art representatives. It is mainly aimed at artists and non-profit making organizations in the world of art and culture in Quebec. In 2021, 2022, we were able to finance 1,762 artistic projects and curations and 888 artistic organizations. Now, we do have a number of programs dedicated to artists and their organizations. And we support these artists throughout their career, from research to production, dissemination, representation abroad. There are a number of programs in the council that allows artists to be invited across the world to participate in festivals, to participate in international events, but also to organize new meetings, to get in touch with new partners, be involved in networking. We also offer artists a residency program with studios and workshops. And my colleague, Laurent, is going to tell you more about this. Yes, hello, everyone. Our international residency program is one of the privileged means for the council to promote artists from Quebec and allow them to travel elsewhere. And you know how important it is for artists to be able to go to visit the world. And these residencies are what we call resourcing or revitalization residencies. We think it is important for these artists to have time on their hands, to have time for research and experiments. So these residencies are more focused on experiments rather than production proper. No pressure is put on the artists. they don't have to come up with a final project at the end of their residency period. We just want them to have enough time to focus on art-related activities like meeting new partners, meeting with people who can disseminate their works, who can help them with their promotion. There are two pillars. Reciprocity is very important, and I'll come back to this point later on. And time. When I say time, I mean duration, because all these residency programs last between a few weeks, 2 months, up to 1 year. Because we think that 2 months is a bare minimum for them to be able to really get enough time to focus, and because also we want to be environmentally responsible. We don't want to send artists across the world just for a very short period of time. And the other thing also is reciprocity, because we do have agreements with other organizations abroad.
Of course, it's important for us to send artists abroad. It's also important for us to have them come to Quebec so that foreigners can stay 3, 4, 5 months during a residency so that they can actually meet the Quebec artists and environment, to have possible collaborations with them. And it's a sort of symbiosis in a way, because through these partnerships, let me go back to the definition of symbiosis, two sustainable bodies can benefit from each other. So it is profitable, it is beneficial to both bodies. And that is really the main thrust of our program, have this reciprocity. As I was saying, we have about 40 agreements based on reciprocity for most of them. We have one in Taipei, we have another one for curators in Brooklyn. We are in Brazil also. And those partnerships are long-term partnerships, 3 to 4 years. And this way, it's possible to create a comprehensive program. It's possible for our artists to go abroad for 3, 4 years. And artistic bodies that belong to this residency can work jointly, can build bridges together, and have interesting discussions. So why am I talking about these residencies programs? I would be very happy to talk to you outside of this room about this in length. And I'm talking about this because we're very happy to announce that the Conseil des Arts et des Lettres in Quebec is currently working with the association named Chronique. It is organizing the biennial in Marseille. I don't see them. Oh, yes, Mathieu Labre is here, as well as Mathilde. So we have a 4-year partnership. In this way, curators from Quebec will be able to go to Marseille, spend a few months there, and then French curators will come to Quebec in return in the framework of this residency. So there is a reciprocal aspect that is very important here. Now, you have our contact info here on the slide. You can call Laurent. Don't hesitate also to talk to me outside of the room and ask me questions. We are still working on this residency program, and I'd like to give the floor to the artists now. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Juliette Lusven. Juliette is an interdisciplinary visual and media artist / researcher living and working in Montreal. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank ELEKTRA and most specifically Alain for their invitation. Thank you to IZIA and the Forum des Images for the organization, and thank you to the interpreters also. As Ida said, I am an artist, a researcher, a cross-disciplinary artist in the visual arts and media arts, and I'm writing a PhD in Montreal, focused on the relationship between visual arts, technology, and marine sciences. And this is why I install the Vision Transatlantic Visions installation, and I'm going to present this installation today. It is an installation in the Atlantic, under the water, and here it was it used geographical data, but also digital data and satellite imagery. All these images are interconnected in real time, so several screens are on the floor. There are cables between them, so as to produce the relevant images from the sea bottom. But before I talk about the installation, let me talk about the research and creation process and the different questions we asked ourselves. In this project, I was interested in the way we relate to our world. Today, we are all interconnected. We have also technological interconnection, which challenges the artificial and natural flows. The history of telecommunications is also interesting, and marine sciences, studying the sea bottoms. This developed during the industrial era, and this need to connect two territories that are geographically remote. In the 19th century, there was the first transatlantic cable between Canada and Europe, for instance. And we know that there are more than 1.2 million optic fiber cables under the oceans that help our digital exchanges go all around the world. It is really the backbone of our connectivity, but this infrastructure that we cannot see because it's in an underwater environment is still being mapped because the environment is quite hostile and also very dark. Emmanuel Irma also talked about a hidden landscape, even though that landscape is all over the globe. So we explore the phenomenon of visibility and the interrelation through the creation of a space installation of this phenomenon. This induces an interaction that is more and more important with satellite images. It is really completely embedded into our exploration modes, but also the way we represent the world to ourselves. This is important in the context of oceanography and earth sciences. This infrastructural circulation is very present in the project. And the artist and geographer Trevor Pavlin mentioned this. So the starting point of the project was to generate topographical images so as to come up with flows. It went a bit too fast, sorry. I cannot go back, but anyway, the idea was to come up with flows, to explore the relationship with transmission flows of data and visual flows of perception. And here, from different globe images, we observed the connectivity point of the cables with the coast. So we sort of mapped all this up. This work was done at the Quebec University in Montreal. Hexagram is the creation network in art, culture, and technology, and I thank them for their collaboration. I thank Max Boutin and Marc-André Cossent, also two researchers with whom we tried to develop a computer program that is that has a specific investigation approach. It's a program working with the web, with the ocean, so as to get information on about 20 cables that are in the Atlantic. By studying these networks, we can have the information communicate between one another and have a visualization process by interconnecting the different routes of the cables. And we have a morphing position thanks to the satellite images and the information that we get as real-time information. So we go from one point on the globe to another point that is not very easily visible. We visualize the data that can interact with other analyses stemming from microscopic processes, whether optical or non-optical, working on residues of materials, for instance here optic fiber, and also working on microorganisms. Microorganisms coming from the sea in areas not far from where the cables are. I worked at the Geotope laboratory during my residency with a professor, Anne de Vernal, and I'd like to seize this opportunity to thank her for this rich collaboration. So these microfossils that you can see here are studied because they can give us information on past environmental conditions, and we can imagine past climates. And I will finish with this video. If you can put a bit more sound. There are different scales, microscopic scale and more macroscopic scale interacting. The transatlantic vision installation challenges this invisibility and circulation of information. It's an experiment between creation arts and marine research. It's a way of exploring the planetary thinking. And this type of work has become fundamental in regard regarding our relationship with the planet. This scheme has no final shape because it keeps evolving and the scale keeps changing. It's like an information ecosystem that is researching this complex network. It's like an immersive laboratory where flows and digital artifacts keep accumulating via a sedimentary and geotechnological process, but also a psychological process because of the way we see the world. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Juliette.
Equal parts artist and scientist. François-Joseph Lapointe has one PhD in evolutionary biology and another one in dance and performance. So let's welcome.
Merci.
Thank you. My name is Françoise-Joseph Lapointe. I am an artist. I am a scientist. I'm a biologist.
Bag of microbes Je suis la somme de toutes les bactéries qui vivent sur moi, autour de moi, à l'intérieur de moi.
I'm the sum of all the bacteria living on top of me and inside me.
For me, art, science, and technology means performance art and biotechnology, more specifically genomics. So I'm going to try to do in 8 minutes an overview of my work. So first and foremost, this is the 1000 Handshakes project, trying to change my bacterial identity by shaking hands with as many people as possible. So I would go to different cities, shake hands, collect the bacteria in my right hand, go back to my lab, sequence the whole stuff, and create what I call microbiome selfies. So maybe first a quick video of the last performance I did at Centre Pompidou. Montez le son, s'il vous plaît.
652, 650.
Je serre la main à 1000 personnes aujourd'hui.
I'm going to shake hands with 1,000 people today. 660, 661.
Partez pas sans me serrer la main. 730,
Don't leave without shaking my hand.
732, 733.
733.
Je vous ai déjà serré
Hello.
la main.
Have I shaken your hand before?
852.
851, 852. I have to shake hands with 1,000 people today. 974, hello.
Je serre la main à 1000 personnes. Vous êtes la
Shaking
975e
hands
personne.
with 1,000 people. You're the 975th person.
997. 998. 999. 1,000. Voilà. You're the winner. This is you. All of you. Ouais. En 3 heures, 1000 poignées de main.
In 3 hours,
C'est
I
un bon
shaked
score. Je suis satisfait.
1,000 hands. I'm satisfied. It's a good score.
All around the world. So the first time I did it was in 2014 at the Medical Museum in Copenhagen. 1,018 handshakes. This is me à la Nuit Blanche de Montréal. 1,000 handshakes. The Quantified Self exhibition in San Francisco. Then I went to Down Under in Perth, 1,001, which sounded like a much interesting number than 1,000. The Transmedial in Berlin. And in Baltimore, I had the opportunity to shake hands with a clown. I was supposed to repeat this performance in Shanghai in 2020, but it was canceled. I don't know why. So this is a microbiome selfie of it's a data visualization of bacteria collected in my right hand after 150 handshakes. 300. 500. 650. 850. 1,001 handshake, giving you an idea of la dynamique de la contamination qui devient de plus en plus.
Gives you an idea of the contamination. It becomes more and more complex as the performance goes on. Another type of performance, you are what you eat.
Interesting stuff, like this is me eating kimchi for 6 hours, trying to become a cabbage. This is me in Copenhagen trying to become Danish by eating Danish food for a whole night. And probably the most interesting one, when I tried to become Batman and during a mission, a scientific mission in Guinea in the middle of the Ebola crisis. So I ate a bat. I sequenced the bat microbiome as well as my microbiome to create this microbiome selfie. So this is me and Batman, me as Batman. So en rouge, in red, a human bacteria, in yellow, bat bacteria. The Holy Microbiome Project, Le Microbiome Sacré, going to different holy cities in the world to see if there's like a common microbiome in these holy places. So this is me licking up La Porte Sainte, the holy door at Vatican City, dipping myself dans le Gange à Varanasi in India, the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, or the Wailing Wall, le Mur des Lamentations à Jérusalem, où j'ai mis quelques prières.
I prayed a bit on the Wailing Wall.
Before and after, and this is a microbiome selfie of the holy microbiome of Jerusalem. So from this identity crisis that I have trying to change my identity through these performances, then I've decided to switch through the transmission of identity at different moments in time, the most important one being when you are born. So the microbiome rebirth incubator has to do with the transmission of bacteria at birth. Les enfants nés par césarienne n'ont pas les mêmes bactéries que les enfants qui sont nés par voie vaginale.
If you are born by a C-section, you don't have the same bacteria as if you're born not by C-section.
Bacteria of babies born by C-section. So it was first exhibited at Ars Electronica in Linz, as well as the Science Gallery in London in 2019, and very recently au Centre d'Artistes Bang at Chicoutimi in December 2022. So you can see the artwork filled with amniotic fluid, vaginal bacteria, as well as breast milk. And this is a microbiome selfie of a baby born by C-section. And on this other boîte lumineuse, this is a baby born naturally. So this is a video of a performance, the ritual of the seeding this incubator, le rituel d'ensemencement, that also gives you an idea of the whole piece. It's combined with an interview of a mother who had to had the emergency C-section.
Donc mon ressenti général, c'est que, en tout cas, pour avoir eu un accouchement donc par césarienne, ce n'est pas du tout comme ça que ça aurait dû se passer, parce que c'est pas l'image véhiculée par la société, ou même l'image que moi j'en avais sur le fait qu'un accouchement doit être quelque chose de plutôt naturel. Néanmoins, je voulais avoir quelque chose de médicalisé, ça c'est évident. Donc c'est quelque chose de violent, de choquant. J'y pense encore tout le temps. Le sentiment qui me reste, c'est que c'est toujours un souvenir qui est en construction. C'est comme un deuil en fait. Donc c'est vraiment un sentiment qui évolue. Moi j'ai eu le sentiment de n'avoir pas pu m'y préparer, même si je le savais quand même finalement une semaine avant mon accouchement effectif que j'allais avoir une césarienne. J'ai essayé donc de me renseigner parce que je trouvais que le personnel médical ne nous avait pas formés, en tout cas dans le pays où j'étais. Donc j'ai eu la chance de savoir à l'avance que j'allais avoir une césarienne. J'aurais pu ne pas être endormie, mais finalement à cause donc, de la complication médicale, du rythme cardiaque de l'enfant, j'ai dû être endormie. Et donc c'est quelque chose, voilà, un sentiment qui naît, ce n'est pas naturel. J'ai eu le sentiment qu'on m'a finalement volé d'une certaine manière un moment très important de ma vie. Je n'en veux pas du tout au personnel médical parce que l'important c'est toujours la santé de l'enfant et de la mère. Néanmoins c'est vraiment un rendez-vous manqué. Donc mes souvenirs en gros c'est être arrivée à l'hôpital, qu'il y ait une variation cardiaque sur mon enfant, le fait qu'on me rentre très vite dans une pièce froide, que mon compagnon n'ait pas eu le temps de se préparer pour m'accompagner. Alors il y a un sentiment de culpabilité aussi par rapport au compagnon qui est ne pas lui avoir offert un accouchement normal et le fait qu'on m'endorme directement et au moment de m'endormir je me dis advienne que pourra, si ça se trouve je me réveillerai pas mais si je me réveille j'aurai normalement un petit bébé en pleine santé. Donc voilà, c'est un sentiment de culpabilité de ne pas avoir pu faire mieux, de ne pas avoir pu participer, de ne pas être capable de donner une naissance de manière normale, de ne pas être capable de donner le bon microbiome dès le départ, de ne pas avoir pu faire confiance à son corps, de tout remettre dans les mains d'un personnel médical, qualifié néanmoins, de ne pas avoir partagé les premiers moments et d'avoir été découpé, vidé, délivré, mais d'avoir totalement, de ne pas avoir eu ce sentiment de magie.
Bacteria and breast milk. This is a recipe for baby kombucha. One last project, Monstrate esse matrem, show yourself as a mother, also inspired by the iconography in Renaissance and medieval art of the Madonna lactans, la Vierge allaitante. So as part of my work as a scientist, I'm interested in the bacteria in breast milk. And so I've been sequencing the breast milk for the longest time. And so what I did was trying to recreate an altarpiece showing une Vierge à l'enfant. So this is like a 3D rendering of the altarpiece that was constructed, but instead of showing like a masterpiece, instead I would show a microbiome selfie based on 3 different samples of colostrum, early milk, and late milk. Also, in addition, on the side panels, you would have like commercial milk, so des formules commerciales du lait maternisé. I work with a composer to create a piece based on the Latin name of all the bacteria in breast milk, and I will finish with that. You can hear the revelation and maybe see, if you pay close attention, a miracle. Plus fort, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. The next speaker is Louis-Philippe Rondeau. Louis-Philippe works with representation and performance in playful and unconventional ways. One of Louis-Philippe's work is presented here at the Forum des Images on the very floor where you enter Forum des Images, right next to the staircase. So maybe you have seen it already.
Merci. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to talk mostly about my latest piece, which is called Veillance, which was inspired by surveillance apparatus. You've probably seen it downstairs in the lobby when you walk in, the installation that scans your body. Which one is this? It's this one? Yes, it is. I've always been surprised and interested about security screenings at the airport. They've attained an almost ritualistic state. I'm fascinated by the strange ritual that we submit to for security purposes. And if you look at the imagery associated with this ritual, there's a certain aesthetic. The aesthetic of the backscatter X-ray or the millimeter wave scanner is, by the way, which is magnificently exploited in Matthew Biederman's installation, which is right upstairs. There's a sort of bluntness, a nakedness to these images, and it's remarkable. If you look at X-rays, X-rays can be beautiful, they can be useful, they can be harmful all at once. They're phenomenally intrusive and rife for abuse. By the way, this image I found on a police website which was entitled Getting the Most Out of Your Body Scanner. So I'm also interested in scanography, which is the practice of using scanners to create images. If you look at my other work, which I'm not really talking about today, I'm interested by older photographic processes, 19th century photographic processes such as slit scan, which is used in my installation downstairs, which in essence what it does is while it scans a space, it substitutes time for space in a two-dimensional image. When I was younger, I was also fascinated by photocopiers, which is an interesting process because 30 years ago, it was a legitimate and accessible way of creating images. And everybody here, I'm sure, has tried at least once to put their hands or their face on the photocopier glass and create images. What's also interesting is since the photocopier does not capture an image all at once, there's a sweeping motion that allows for movement and perhaps even performance. In the 90s, early 2000s, the scanners were accessible means of creating digital images. There's a lot of artists who have used scanners as part of their workflow. For example, Katerina Jeb's practice uses a large format scanner to capture people, just like the body scanners we saw earlier. What's interesting with scanners like these is that they distort perspective. They create orthographic images, but sometimes only in one dimension. So if you look at these images, actually here, horizontally, they're in regular camera perspective, but vertically, they're in orthographic perspective. Which brings me to my installation that I'm showing here at ICEA this year, which is called Veillance. I'll explain the title a little bit later. This latest work is based on these two concepts. So body scanning, like the body imaging, and also scanography. They're inspired, well, the title is inspired by Steve Mann, which you may know as the father of wearable computing. What's interesting is that Steve Mann's research, he looked into the processes of surveillance. And what's interesting about surveillance is that, well, we might have like three different points of view. There's surveillance, in which authority figures are spying on citizens. And Steve Mann introduces the concept of sous-veillance. So in French, sur means au-dessus, coming from above. Sous means from below. So surveillance means citizens on their side checking in on power figures, reversing the process. And this process has been exacerbated by the ubiquity of smartphones. For example, the murder of George Floyd was surveilled, we could say, by passerby who took out their cell phones and did citizen journalism. So if you look at these two dynamics, you get veillance, which was expanded from Steve Mann's surveillance concept, which is the dialogical power dynamic of the mutual observation and spying. If you look at my previous installations, here we have Liminal, which you may have seen at ICEA 2019. I was always intrigued by the fact that people turn their camera phone onto the devices that are meant to spy on them, in this case, my installations. So they're actually doing surveillance. And by using, let's see, is this working? So by using scanners, I also add another dimension to the image making process, which is time. Because the scanning process allows for time to lapse during the scan, this also allows for movement and performance. So by actually moving while you're being scanned, it's a form of, you're hijacking the scanning process. So the surveillance is being overridden by your movement, which creates images that are distorted where you cannot be recognized. So my installation's modus operandi is, while we look at the mosaic of people that's shown on screen, we are ourselves captured by the device. So we get stuck by the scanning process, thus adding to its inventory of people. But by moving our bodies, we can hijack the scanning process and make ourselves unrecognizable to the scanner. So like in my other pieces, the pleasurable aspect is what attracts interactors and activates the encounter. You've probably seen downstairs people, even children, having fun with my installations. First people laugh, then presumably the installation gets them to think about the mediation process and also the intrusiveness of the ubiquitous surveillance devices. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
We have Jean-Philippe Côté and Victor Drouin-Trempe. This duo has an installation, a sound installation at the moment, which is shown at the Gallery Abstract Project, which is just 5 minutes away from here by train. So we recommend that you go there.
Excellent, thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. I'm here with Victor Drouin-Trempe to present our interactive installation, which is called Empreinte Sonore. Before anything else, we'd like to thank ICEA and ELEKTRA for choosing and supporting supporting the presentation of this project here in Paris. So thank you. The title of Empreinte Sonore could probably be translated in English to something like sound imprint. It gives a hint of what this project is about. But I guess the best way to understand an interactive artwork is really to experience it. Since we cannot do that now, we'll just show you a little video presentation.
Empreinte sonore, sonore, sonore.
Yeah, so I don't know if you realize looking at the video, but there's this little device here. Maybe some of you have one at home. It's called a Google Home. It's a voice assistant. Some of you might have those Alexa device, or those devices are, there's kind of a symbolic aspect with this device because we place them in our home and they are always listening to what we're saying. So we wanted to think about the digital traces that we leave behind. You know, when we go into internet, we leave traces, but now we're placing these objects into our home, and so they're recording stuff, and they're placing all these recording in servers. And so we have a trace that we leave, and we put those devices a bit everywhere. So we wanted to show with those, you saw the representation of the sound wave, so to show what is, like to make visible what is hidden, so the accumulation of sound data that maybe we don't see them because we only see this little device that is really well designed. It's really small, so we don't really see what's happening like behind these devices. So we wanted to show, make visible all those accumulation of data. So when you speak in this device, it's like a Google Home that we hacked, kind of. So when you speak in them, you will see the sound print, the empreinte sonore of the sound. And then what we wanted to do, it was like a kind of experience the sound. So you can walk in the sound, you can go back and forth, and you can feel the sound that was in print, so you can be inside the sound, so you can realize what's happening, make visible what's happening when we record in those devices.
So I guess one of the initial goals of this project was really to reverse, at least symbolically, our usual relationship with sound. As you know, sound is a fleeting vibration that moves towards our ears through a medium, which is typically air. And the question was, what if we ourselves had to move around so our ears could reach a sound wave that's frozen somewhere both in time and space? And so basically this is what we tried to achieve with this project. It's a playful device to physically explore a sound that does not immediately disappears as it normally does. So it is a very simple idea, but it did pose various challenges. First, for most users, auditory clues are not enough to make a direct relation between the movement in space and the movement in sound. So we quickly realized that it was necessary to add visual cues, and even with them present, some users did not necessarily pick up on the sound-space relationship. So this is where we envision a layering of interactivity, which proved in the end quite fruitful. When we presented this project 2 weeks ago in Germany, a curator there dubbed this approach multi-interactivity, and so it kind of stuck with us. We kind of liked this this term, but the idea was to layer different types of interactivity, so users could pick up one or more of these layers. Given I guess a shared cultural common ground, most users will understand that A, this is interactive, often because of the setting, and B, they can actually speak in the microphone, even if it's really a Google Home device, because simply it sits on top of a microphone stand, which is at the normal microphone height. And B, they can actually speak in the microphone and see their voice being drawn in real time and hearing it play back in a sound loop of those accumulated sound. And for many of them, this is actually quite a pleasurable experience, and in and of itself is satisfying. But then we added this idea of moving around in the sound, and so the second layer of interactivity is the ability to control playback with your actual physical movement in space. The thing is, eliciting this behavior proved harder than expected. We had to find the right balance, I guess, between being too didactical or too cryptic, and I guess most interactive artists are struggling with that. Often, depending on the setting, painting steps on the floor was enough for people to understand what was expected of them. And as much as possible, we are trying to let interactors discover by themselves without telling them much about what is expected of them. And this means that some of them do not get the interaction at all, but those who do actually have this eureka moment, and this is where I guess the pleasure comes from the installation. That's it. This moment is usually quite precious.
Yeah, so just a few words about the how we did the sound part where we're moving, because I was taking care of the sound part and he was taking care of the visual part. So there's quadrophony happening, so maybe you saw it in the video, but there's 4 speakers. So what we wanted to do to really explore the sound is to make the sound move while you move. So there's 4 speakers, so when you move from left to right, you're going to hear the sound moving with you. So you're transporting the sound while you move. So you can really be inside the sound. That's what we wanted to do. And I'm using granular synthesis, so we can move in the sound slowly or fast or reverse or backward, but keeping the same pitch. So it makes like kind of a distorted sound, sort of like if it was recorded and playing back at different speed. So you can really feel like you're moving and you're feeling going fast or slow or reverse or, yeah.
Touch Designer was used for the motion detection and the sound visualization, and it communicates with Ableton Live with via OSC. We settled on using the Azure Connect for movement tracking, and has the advantage of offloading most of the skeleton detection to an external device and leaving the computer free to do other stuff. And it has this nice wide, 120 degrees wide field of view. So the only tricky part was figuring out what to do with several users, and so we had to do a bit of work with that. But in the end, even with larger crowds, we were able to isolate and pick out individual users, namely those that had been there the longest or the closest to the screen. Oh, time's running out.
Yeah, so that's it. So you can discover our work at the Abstract Project Gallery, which is open till Saturday from 2 to 7. And yeah, we thanks Hexagram, Conseil des Arts du Québec, et Conseil des Arts du Canada for your help, financial help. Yeah, thank you.
Merci beaucoup à vous.
Thank you very much.
That is Emma Fergus is Sam Bourgault, who works with soft electronics. And Sam and Emma, they have an installation here as well at Forum des Images on the very ground floor when you come in, right next to Louis Philippe's, on like behind the staircase. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. This is to go forward. This is if you ever want to go back.
Hi, my name is Sam Bourgault. I'm Emma Forgue. And today we're going to talk to you about soft-moving bodies, co-production with robots and materials. We met in 2017 when we were both doing our undergrad degree at the University Concordia in Montreal. And since then, we've been best friends and great collaborators. So I'm currently located at the University of Santa Barbara, where I'm doing a PhD in a human-computer interaction lab, and I develop software inspired by domain expert knowledge to support creativity. My most recent project is around clay 3D printing, so that's not the subject of the talk, but if you're interested in that, grab me in the hallway.
So as for me, I'm still based in Montreal. I'm taking a break from academia, focusing mainly on my own artistic practice, but also working on collaborative projects with artists from different fields. Here are some images and clips documenting some of it. And I'm also involved in the Montreal electronic music scene as a live visual performer and a DIY event organizer.
So to begin with this talk, we first wanted to highlight some of the characteristics of our common artistic practice. So first of all, our approach to creation is really material-based. We like to touch and manipulate and try things directly with the material. So we could say that in our case, the physical or the tangible inform the digital. We also both like to engage in creation with a tinkering approach. So we believe that beauty emerges from that playful interaction between the human, the machines, and the materials. And theoretically, we're inspired by techno-feminist and new materialist theories. We believe that ecological, human, computational systems old forms of agencies, and when we engage with these systems with care and through listening, we're able to move away from dogmatic and patriarchal structures. Finally, in terms of our analytical framework, we use human-computer interaction, so HCI strategies, engaging with co-production, research creation, and autobiographical research. Therefore, our practice unfolds into two branches. One is installation and performances that explore the relationship between the body and technology. And then the second, under the alias She phase, we create visuals for live concerts or music videos, for instance. But today we're gonna focus on the first one. And we'll start with a very quick overview of some of our past projects and then discuss the project that we're presenting here at IZEA in the Forum des Images.
Thank you, Sam. So our first collaboration together is called Carcasse Soluble. It's both a video and a performance piece that reflects on the impact of the Anthropocene on the human body using our own skin as screens. The visuals we created for the piece illustrates concepts of urbanization, migration, epidemics, information overload, and exploitation of natural resources. The project triggered our desire to bridge the digital with the physical by having our skin distort the visual content. We're going to skip one because we don't want to run over the time limits. This is Perrault Saint-Simon. It's a soft robotic sculpture that reinterprets the tale of the Roman charity in our current technological context. The sculpture represents an abstract version of a breast or mammary gland that pumps milk continuously into a vase. However, the vase never fills, therefore the machine must keep producing. The piece aims to highlight how women's identities and bodies are used as servants and assistants, or essentially as a means of production. To investigate these ideas further and examine their correlation with the materials and methods we used to create the piece, we wrote a full paper which was published by IZEA in 2020.
So we won't go into the details of that paper, but if you're interested in our analysis of using soft robotics as a medium for art, it's available online, so we invite you to go read it. And now on the project we're presenting here called Body Circuit Parcours Corporel, our analysis of Perrault Saint-Simon theoretically that focus on the symbolic meanings of certain materiality was really an inspiration for this project. We started this project as a playful interaction with different type of materials and different fabrication techniques, and the outcome was a room-sized installation where people could wander around and experience the documentation of that process through different senses. For the second iteration, we focus on a specific component of that first version. Specifically, we were trying to highlight contrasting material properties, and Emma will tell you a bit more about that.
So for the second iteration of Parcours Corporel Body Circuit, we present soft machines housed in organically shaped ceramic vessels who pinch, inflate, and caress our multiple pieces of human limbs. So we have pneumatic tubing and electroluminescent wires establishing connections between different zones of interaction. The work creates a unique space where soft and delicate entities intertwine with rigid and complex bodies, both offering tenderness and support. It presents an alternative world where technology in relationship with the human body revolve around the concept of care, which we're more and more interested in. The installation you can see downstairs contains 5 3D printed ceramic vessels that exhibit organic features reminiscent of bodies with their bumps, cracks, and curves. Inflatable robotic objects made of semi-transparent polymer sheets, also known as TPU, reproduce human organs' behaviors inhabiting the ceramic vessels where they inflate and deflate with a slow pulse. The inflatable objects are powered by 3 different small air pump systems fixed to a mirror, and we have LEDs installed inside the ceramics to illuminate the structures from within. And finally, we have 2 body parts made of silicone, buttocks, and a torso, our own, which are also placed inside our sensory network.
So the work is slowly evolving rhythms of breath due to the inflatables that inflates and deflates, and of lights that showcase a possible symbiosis between different material states, also between different type of fabrication approaches. The ceramic pieces are made through digital fabrication techniques and altered manually. These 3D printed ceramics are defined mathematically to generate the forms and the toolpath of the machine. And then the inflatables are made manually by tracing the forms one by one with a heat tool to seal the sheet together. So as our common practice continue to evolve, we're more and more interested in this notion of manual digital craft. Since this is the first time we present the piece, we don't have extensive documentation, but the best documentation is going to see the piece in person downstairs next to Salle 500, next to the entrance actually. Salle 50, sorry, next to the entrance. And you can also find more information about our practice and the piece on our website that are not there, but available through the QR code next to the piece. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Sam. And now the next speaker is Mathieu Biederman. Mathieu works is presented here at Le Forum des Images in the corridor when you are going toward the buffet.
So, here we go. Thank you. All right. Bonjour, everyone. Hello. Just really quickly, just want to thank ELEKTRA and the entire team at ELEKTRA for the support here and the support over the years and bringing inspiring work to Quebec and all over, as well as CALQ and the government of Quebec for supporting my work and our work and bringing us here and bringing a lot of other friends here. So I thank you guys, and it's been an amazing place to work. I've lived there for about 17 years now from California. So here we are. My work is kind of rhizomatic, so it's a little hard to give a total overview, but I'm gonna take kind of a slice, bit of a trajectory, and see if we can find a way from where I started to the piece that you see out here. So really early work, and maybe even earlier, I can remember one of my first encounters with technology, and I'm old enough to have had the experience where the TV repairman had to come over and fix our television and take the back of it off. And I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and it sort of uncovered the whole mystery of this object in the house, that there was a system of bits, let's say, in there that actually brought these images into our home and kind of provided, let's say, entertainment at that time. And for me, it was a real unveiling of this kind of network, let's call it, this broadcast network, and how it entered our home, that you could actually go in there and manipulate these sorts of these objects. And so that is kind of at the core of all of my work. And this one in particular is a tuning corridor. And here I was really interested in trying to unveil the electromagnetic spectrum, at least within the FM band, that it's a physical entity. So it's basically a hallway that you walk through, and you tune a radio or a set of radios in real time, kind of based on an architectural feature. This hallway was at a festival in Lima, Peru, co-curated by Jose Carlos Mariategui, who I think is floating around here somewhere, and Kathleen Ford. We'll just watch a little video here, if I can make this work. So yeah, sort of get the idea. I don't think we need to see another pass through, but oh, that's interesting. Strange design. I'm not sure what happened, but at any rate, this kind of work, this kind of activity within the electromagnetic spectrum and the research there brought me to work and learn about other artists' work and collaborate with them. And there was one major kind of series of performance works called Spectre, Scatter, Signal Sever. This particular one here that we see was with Marco Pelhan, Brian Springer, Alyosha Abrahamsberg. These photos are actually from IZEA, I guess, 2008 in Singapore, which the performance was like a dusk till dawn, audiovisual, music, sound. It was sort of a landscape of signals. And here we kind of explored the entire electromagnetic spectrum over this long period of time, which included sort of data, satellite imagery, radar, just basically everything that we could find, and kind of remixing it into a performance version. We did another version at Newcastle Audiovisual Festival. Here we worked with another ham radio operator. We would have these sort of long tables and our backs to the audience, and also exposing all of the tools that we used as well, again, to sort of, try to demystify these kinds of experiences and this landscape, let's call it. So we'll watch a few minutes. It sort of looked and sounded like this, at least for part of it. On the right, you have a real-time radar and flight tracking overhead of the actual cartography, or the actual geography of where we were. And everything is kind of real-time. So, at any rate, we'll move along. Here are a couple of projects that I did directly in Montreal, kind of solo projects. There was the Office of Spectral Ecology, which I did in a couple of different places, where I went around and measured electromagnetic radiation, kind of emissions around the city of wherever this was installed, put stickers on it, did sort of a big mapping of kind of the the spectrum as a way to kind of, again, delineate this kind of invisible network of power and money as a public resource, to kind of note how it, in fact, invades every part of our public space. And this at DARE DX, which was part of DARE in Montreal, I spent a month each evening exploring the spectrum and kind of exposing it. There were also ham radio workshops. We did FM transmitter workshops where I taught people how to build their own transmitters, kind of a way of reclaiming our space within this spectrum. Which brings us to kind of a next piece, again with collaboration with Marco Pelhan. We should take nothing for granted on the building of an alert and knowledgeable citizenry. We did this after a residency at the Wave Farm in northern New York State. And here, this was just after the Snowden revelations, the sort of exposure and realization, I guess, of all of our fears that we actually were being tracked the entire time and listened to. And this piece uses the famous Eisenhower farewell address from 1961. It was sort of the first time that a president or anyone really talked about the military-industrial complex. He also talked about the environmental destruction by just kind of extractionism that we all are facing today. And this is, this is a Republican president in 1961. So I don't know what that says about today, but something, I'm sure. And at any rate, so what we did is we took our sort of database of recorded signals, and the spectrum was really becoming this kind of closed space, a very encrypted space. We had a lot of recordings of these, of just data and different sort of types of encryption and encoding. So we took the speech and kind of took the text and mined different ideas around the text, and then kind of translated it to this database of sounds. And as he spoke, it kind of created a 5-channel audio sort of audio landscape, again, of these more encrypted spaces. And you also heard his speech over that. But also in there, and I'm trying to remember if I have a video. No, I don't. So I'm going to go backwards. So also in that piece, though, and you can see this woman on the right, she has a cell phone, and we had we spoofed a cell phone network. So you would get a text ping, and you could chat with the earliest version of kind of the Turing test, the earliest chatbot, Eliza, which we also kind of tweaked so that it sounded a little bit scarier, but it was ultimately just an Eliza replica running on an SDR, sort of, again, reclaiming the spectrum for us. And here, kind of a piece that was developed in sort of parallel with the piece that's upstairs. It was an early, let's call it a small SLM, a small language model. It's a neural network trained on American and United Nations code words and military code words and their descriptive operations. So this piece then started to generate its own code names and a description for them. And that's what you kind of see on the right. And then what it was is 2 machines, and they had this conversation. But they had the conversation through Morse code. So it was sort of a merger of the sort of latest technology and sort of earliest technology of communication. And they communicated through Morse code by spark gaps, which was even the first way of transmitting things over the electronic spectrum, just one bit, basically. 20,000 kilovolts. So that was fun and interesting. Oh, we don't have to watch this. I think I'm out of time anyway. But to just bring it home and talk about the generative adversarial network that's upstairs. Again, this was developed in parallel with the other work. And it's from a TSA data set where they had a bounty for computer scientists to try to take the human out of recognizing what is the security threat, you know, and so what I did is I took that and then just generated more security threats with it. So it uses a really early version of a generative adversarial network, and all trained by myself. And again, just what we see on the smaller screens is that machine learning algorithm learning how to generate those images. So again, this kind of unveiling of the technology that's behind all of this apparatus that we are surrounded with. So with that, I'll say au revoir and merci. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. And now I would like to introduce you Samuel Saint-Aubin. You can see and discover two of his work just close to the buffet. So Samuel Saint-Aubin is coming. Good for you?
Yes.
Let's go.
Désolé. Bonjour tout le monde. C'est un honneur pour moi d'être ici devant vous cet après-midi.
Hello everyone. It's a great honor to be with you this afternoon. Let me share with you the first version of spaghetti.
OK. Bon, je tiens à remercier déjà ELEKTRA.
Thank you very much to ELEKTRA and the Quebec government in IZA, and it's really a great honor to be with you today.
Un petit problème technique ici.
There's a slight technical glitch, I'm afraid.
It's coming in a few seconds. OK. Bon, juste pour vous mettre en contexte, je suis depuis 15 années, je travaille.
For some 15 years now, I have been a circuit designer, and it led me to my own production. I started some 6 years ago, and electronics is everything to me because I design printed circuits, and I really need my slides to go on.
Oh yeah, okay.
Here we go. So just up on the screen, I can hear myself as an echo here. As you could see on the screen, there were several clocks. And interestingly, with this project, when I first installed the clocks, I had to make sure that they were all pointing to noon. And gradually the clocks drifted. And showed a different time. What I like to do is to design circuits and then gradually I improve them, water resistant. Then I design some for choreographer or theaters. Can you, is it just in my mind, or can you, all of you also in the audience, hear the echo? Right. Now, this also I use. This is a resistance, and some of these components are really very tiny. It's been downsized, but irrespective of the components you use, when you design circuit board, you have to comply with some criteria, and there are some dimensions you have to respect, and the mass as well. And even a tiny resistance it needs to be quite accurate in its dimensions. So, and you have plus and minus because it's the range of variation that can be tolerated and for the component to still work properly. Here is a crystal, which is at the very heart of each of the board. And the microcontroller, the microprocessor, uses a crystal. It's a bit like its heart, if you like. And there's also a frequency associated with it. And the quartz vibrates with the same frequency irrespective of the temperature. And when you strike the sort of tuning fork here, it gives you the number of pulses per minute, and this is the frequency, in other words. And so it's quite tiny, but it's significant enough for the clock to start drifting. And this is something which will gradually lead the needles to touch in the clock. And these minerals can be quartz, but it can also be sand or aluminum or it's all. What matters is the organization between the minerals and the board. And in the industry, some equipment is used to properly assemble these components so that they can be fitted onto the board. And here again, there's a set of criteria to be complied with. Here are resistances, as the one I showed you earlier on, and also some components that I place in small boxes so as to facilitate, make it more convenient for me to use them. So what you see here up on the screen is the brain, as it were, the microcontroller's brain. Now, I just want to skip a few slides to show you the machine called Prosperity. In fact, I'm an artist and I'm not an artist. You see, I'm fascinated by electronics and how things are organized. and the way I use these components in my pieces. Now, this installation is shown on the first floor, if I'm not mistaken. And here's how it works. So it sorts the grains of rice and picks the grain. It picks up the grain. This is a fairly basic system. It doesn't use a computer. It's just a chip that is responsible for the operation. So I had to do with the limited memory available. And here's how it works. So just like a human being, this machine focuses first on one area of the board and then picks up each grain of rice as we would do ourselves. And I even reproduced this work with a plier, with some pliers, in order to mimic what the machine does. And gradually I came to realize that I acted just like the robot. And here you can see what I did. I picked up the grains. In fact, in order to boost your productivity, you need to get organized and you need to have some sort of order in what you do. And here we are. I think I've run out of time. Thank you. And as we can see here, this is a machine crushing spaghetti. In fact, the spaghetti never breaks at the same rate. So you can work out with this machine the spaghetti strength. It can be a function of humidity. It's a sort of tensile strength of the spaghetti. It's measuring machine, which is absolutely pointless, granted. But you see, machines usually help you to earn more money, to be more productive, whereas my machines are just machines for the sake of it. That's the beauty of it. So this machine compresses a spaghetti very slowly with very small motions. And here it goes. And we are told what's the measurement. I've got other things I could show you, but I leave it there. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Samuel.
Thank you very much, Samuel.
Next speaker is Yann Brelot. He is a practitioner and researcher in the field of visual music for immersive devices, and also a professor in NAD UCAT in Montréal. UCAC. Here we go. Alors c'est toujours, en fait t'appuies et c'est bon, je te lance le start tout de suite. Comme ça tu sais où t'en es. C'est bon pour toi. Attends, je te mets en pause quand même. Ok, c'est bon. Comme ça tu sais. Merci.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be at the ISEA symposium. Thanks Alain. Thanks to the team of ELEKTRA to organizing Focus Quebec.
For this project, I will present really one project, really a creation I've made during the pandemic, the different sequence of isolation at home. And I wanted to show the project. So the fundamental basis of this project derives from volumetric captures of self-portraits that are subsequently converted into virtual environment. The objective of the project is to develop a solo exhibition comprised of full dome size painting, interactive installation, and digital print. So the project embraces accidents, digital glitches, scanning issues, mean to generate volumetric material. Basically, I'm repeating a single organic shape and create a wall environment. So the single shape, as one you can see over here, becomes an abstract environment. And it's really to play with this idea of perfection and imperfection, because when you're scanning a character, a person, an object, you want to have the perfect scanning and no glitch. And on this project, I'm doing the opposite. So this is basically, this project started with a kind of an obsession. So I play with one shape, I repeated the shape, and then I started to go inside each shape with a little camera inside the 3D environment. And then I found some texture, and really my face becomes a complete abstract environment. So the raw material project emerged from situation of isolation, like I said. After each wave ended, I felt the need to explore new forms of selfie using 3D capture. What at the very beginning was a learning space has gradually transformed into an artistic project on its own right. So the next, for the creation of the work, I generated virtual environments, as I say, using scan. Then I choose a first-person camera point of view, from digital to print, from virtual reality to video projection, and the web also with the same digital material. So using the pixel, so matière première is called raw material. So using the pixel as the raw material, it's about generating new and unprecedented representation of my person in the form of immersive environment. Navigating inside virtual environments allow me to choose singular point of view halfway between the concrete and the abstract. Depending on the position of the camera, the depth of field and the positioning of the light, the aesthetic approach from microscopic photography, mineral, and organic materials. So it's really an aesthetic exploration. So I plan to do an exhibition with large print based on this kind of exploration. And it's really simple in terms of rendering. It's just camera and lights and playing with this texture. So first, it was a really more two-dimension representation. Here is a prototype of a digital landscape. The idea of this landscape is really simple. The camera and the landscape are moving so slowly. So when you arrive on the front of the painting, the digital painting, it looks like a still image. But if you come back 15 minutes later, it's another picture, it's another. So you can see a tree state of the same environment. But if you're on the front of it, you can't see with your eyes the transformation. It's really, really, really slow. So it's like, I think it's 9 hours. So after that, after creating this first person point of view of a digital environment, I decided maybe I can create a full dome or immersive environment from this environment, but from this texture and abstract painting. But it was kind of difficult. Here you can see a 360, but it was really, really difficult. So I try to see if we can generate another version on full dome, but moving the camera was really, really difficult. So I work with Rémi Lapierre and one of my collaborators, and we decided to put it on Unreal 5. I don't know if you know exactly, but the last version of Unreal 5, there's a technology called Nanite, and it can manage 300 instances of the same 3D object. So I give myself the possibility to manage billions of pixels and navigate inside this kind of repeating environment. So this is, now I'm in the Unreal interface, and I'm just playing with the camera and advanced. So you will see some glitch. I think there's one here. Yeah. So I'm really trying to find nice point of view, maybe to generate a new painting. And I was trying to reproduce this process, this creation process in real time. So that was basically the idea of trying. So then I asked myself, it is possible to create real-time full dome rendering by using Unreal Engine. And the answer is yes, but it's a difficult yes. So, so I went to a residency at the Dominicains de Haute-Alsace to work. They have a small dome for prototyping with a really, really nice resolution with 4K projector. So I made an artist residency there to work and to create a new version of the piece, but more in full dome using Unreal, but also Cinema 4D and different render engine. So this is the little dome. So it's for 15 person, and it's perfect for creation, test, and experimentation. So then I made some different environments based on the repetition and the immersive environment I created. And basically, this is still image of, so here you can see a still image of the Unreal environment. And so that's another environment I created inside, and a full dome picture inside a full dome, so that's practical. And then I can show you the video, so you can, if you can pull the volume up, please. I will play the video, and then my presentation will be finished. Over here, and that's the back of the dome. Or you can stay you can put the volume up again, sorry. We can see the inside of my head. So the orange part is just another representation. So this one is the Unreal Engine part where I navigate real time in full dome. time is up. Basically, the idea it's not to represent myself or play with my own identity, but more exploring the material part of my body and use it as a way to create virtual immersive environment, and also working with experiential design, using all visual and also sound for full dome experiment, but also large print for future exhibition. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Yann. And now the next speaker is Timothée Thomasson. Timothée questioned the way in which moving images are produced and consumed in historical and contemporary context. And for the audience, Timothy is here. Yeah. Just a reminder, we will not have a lot of time for questions, so if you could just ask artists during lunchtime or during break, it will be great. Thank you so much, and sorry.
How do you go next? This. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thanks to ELEKTRA and Isaiah, and also the Arts Council of Quebec. So I'm an artist based in Montreal and also a member of the Hexagram Research Creation Network. And I'll be doing a quick overview of 4 artworks today, 2 of which are actually works in progress. So the first work I'll speak about is actually opening tomorrow at the MAIF Social Club as part of Isaiah. Here in Paris, and the work is titled Eat Sand, and it's done in collaboration and based on the research of Benjamin Keenan, who is an interdisciplinary geochemist. So this work converts real-time, or not real-time, but real geochemical data into an artwork representing the changing population, vegetation, and climate of the ancient Maya people at a site called Eat Sand in central Guatemala over the course of 6,000 years. So these data are drawn primarily from analysis of lake cores, so these cylindrical samples from deep below the lake sediment, which encompass 6,000 years of sediment accumulation. And these were brought to Montreal, where these kind of stories about climate, which suggest things like wet or dry periods, periods of forest fires, and large-scale agriculture over the course of 6,000 years could be retrieved. And also the sediment compounds, within the sediment there are compounds actually from fecal matter, which were present in the sample and used to gauge basically the presence of large populations and their sewage outputs. So this tells the story of migrating populations when held against the climate change data. So using this state-of-the-art analysis, these state-of-the-art analysis methods, Benjamin was actually able to find evidence for human populations existing at this site approximately 600 years earlier than archaeological data actually suggests. So the work at the MAIF is quite slow and simple, and really sort of allows the scientific research from Benjamin that underpins it to remain the focus, and kind of moving beyond this sort of simple didactic scientific representation of data to something that's much more kind of obscure. The next work I'll talk about is titled Slow Track, and it's basically this long looping artwork created entirely with CGI, and it features this slowly moving virtual perspective that gradually unveils new environments. And the intention with this work is kind of drawing actually from the aesthetics, techniques, and goals of what's known as slow cinema and slow art. So here the work basically sets out to restrain the kind of limitless visual possibilities that are found in current computer animation technology, with the intention to basically question the structural and aesthetic nature of the virtual image itself. So it does this by kind of doing away with this excess speed, spectacle, surrealism, sci-fi, etc., that we commonly associate with computer-generated imagery. So in the work, there's this perceptually photorealistic, slow, almost mundane image, as I said, drawing from the kind of stylistic canon and the aesthetics of what is known as slow cinema and also video art. And in doing so, basically disrupts the prevailing aesthetics of computer-generated or virtual images. And also kind of pushing against these very sleek, clean images that you would often see in architectural visualizations. So here, all of the spaces are these kind of full of clutter and dirt and dust, etc. I don't think we have sound, but oh yeah, there's some sound. Yeah, so the sound in the work is playing with the audio conventions that are associated with computer games, motion graphics, advertisements, basically constantly reminding the viewer of these artificial images. These are some process images here. So yeah, drawing from the kind of images of filmmakers, maybe like Tarkovsky or Bellatar, people like this. If you could turn the volume a bit down. Thank you. The next work is called I'm Feeling Lucky, and it's a real-time computer-generated installation that questions our relationship to image, geography, virtual space, historical media technology, and mass data collection systems. So basically in the work, there's this huge historically and geographically ambiguous 3D virtual landscape that's generated in real time with game engine technology, Unreal Engine 5 actually, and then populated with these figures that are pulled from Google Street View. So in the end, there's thousands of figures that are pulled from Street View, and these figures are then processed through a deep neural network so that they become three-dimensional models in the virtual space. So it's kind of interesting because I think most people wouldn't have known that their photo was ever taken in the first place, and then they end up in this kind of bizarre, sort of idyllic pastoral landscapes. An important part of this work is it takes into consideration panorama paintings of the late 19th century as objects of historical, cultural, and perceptual significance, and situates them within contemporary media contexts. So these are these rotunda structures in which huge 360-degree paintings wrap their interior, and they often depict these super spectacular battle scenes, religious events, or large cityscapes. And these panorama structures are often theorized as this kind of lineage of immersive media technology, and are thought of as this kind of proto-cinematic or virtual reality form. Basically emerged as this kind of technical innovation as it allowed the user's gaze to wrap 360 degrees without a fixed bound to look at. So within the context of this work, this kind of panorama image is generated procedurally, so it's infinite, and the camera just endlessly kind of rotates around, and it's kind of playing with the spectacle of the panorama alongside the spectacle of the mass data collection system underdone by Google. The final work is in very early stages of production called Bird Watching, which is going to be this kind of long semi-narrative work that features 5 different species of birds. Each of them is in this kind of non-natural environment, and over the course of the work, the birds begin to do less bird-like things, kind of, but they still move like birds. And with this work, I'm interested basically in the tension between the perceptually realistic likeness of these 3D CGI birds, both in their appearance, but also how they move, and in contrast to kind of what they're doing and where they are. So they start behaving in these strange, kind of weird ways. And also I'm thinking with this, the kind of recent push in computer graphics, which focuses on AI systems, which create near instantaneous generations of both images and now more recently movement of CGI things. So I'm interested in kind of returning or like sticking to this method of working, which is super laborious and time consuming and requiring a ton of detail, basically watching, observing birds in order to animate them to look like that. And then in the final iteration of the work, the images will be displayed on these 3 large hanging screens from the ceiling. And thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Timothy. And now the speakers are Bill Vaughan et Louis-Philippe Demer.
Bill and Louis-Philippe Demer.
Friday and Saturday at Le Cube. Unfortunately, there are no more places to perform. However, the show is totally free and open to the public, so if you want to join us with your friend and family, you are very, very welcome. And now, Bill Vaughan and Louis-Philippe Demer.
Alors bonjour, like we said, bonjour, hi. Today we're going to speak about Inferno, because we're presenting it tomorrow and Saturday. And we're going to speak also about the following to Inferno, which we call Godspeed. So it's a work in progress right now, and we anticipate to be able to show it next year, hopefully. And if we have time, then we're going to both talk about our individual, most recent projects.
Okay, so a little preview about Inferno that's going to give an introduction to the next project, Godspeed. So Inferno, as the title suggests, is, depicting supposedly hell. So it's a lot of publicized about anxiety, eternal damnation, and so forth. So the idea is like to put people in a machine, and in kind of the loop of the machine is to kind of eternal punishment. But in reality, when we set up the people for the experience, like the one who are going to do it tomorrow, people are a bit scared about this. I guess most of you haven't never worn an exoskeleton, never experienced a close-up encounter with a robot, and so forth. So you're a bit, adverse to the experience. So the idea is to play with all these elements. So I think the next slide. Is there a way to trigger the playback and the sound of this thing? There's a video on this. I don't know if it's going to play. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay. Raise the sound, please.
So we've been working with robots in the context of installations and performances for more than 30 years. And with Inferno, the goal of the project was really to try to bring the machine as close as possible to the human body. Like when you do interactive robotic installation, there's always sort of a distance, pretty similar to what we can find in zoological gardens, for example. But this time, we really wanted to transform or to create a symbiosis between the machine and the robot. So we started to be interested into wearable robotics and prosthesis and things like that. And this is why we came up with this idea behind Inferno.
So, starting from Inferno, one of the foremost results we had from this is the audience participation. So we were quite intrigued by the fact that people enjoyed the loss of control, and the fact that you have to think that people are totally untrained, they're not prepared. It's not scripted. We just say, well, move with the robot, and that's the only instruction. So there were a lot of challenges that's going to be transported to Godspeed, but these are the main point. But at the same time, a lot of the experience is based only on dancing inside Inferno. So the idea with Godspeed is to expand on the same principles and go beyond these points. So Godspeed. Godspeed is actually like an expression that people use to say like, good luck in the upcoming journey. It's a bit of a way to say, especially these days with the, everything is about AI and the scare about AI and so forth. So it's like Godspeed in our journey with what's coming towards the humanity with these things. So we play with this expression. But at the same time, Godspeed comes from quite an ancient expression. It's like speed the plow and like labor. So rethink about our situation of labor within rituals of machines.
And with Godspeed, we want to push further in different directions. We want to allow the public to be able to experience different type of wearable robots, not just one like we have in Inferno, but of course, if we want like multiplicity, diversity, and so on, we need to have simplicity because we need to make like machines that are easier to get in or out of.
And one thing that's going to happen with Godspeed is going to be very different kinds, different declination of bodily extensions. And since we're going to equip the people with feedback, like right now, most of the feedback is coming from us towards the audience. So now within the audience, we're going to put a lot of sensors distributed in the participants, but as well into the audience to be able to explore all kinds of emergence, try to get everybody to play some kind of strange noise track altogether, very reminiscent to what you can hear probably in, more like ritualistic scenarios.
And also because of this feedback system, we will be able to gather a lot of data coming from the participants, and this will allow us to, answer the famous question about are you using AI in your work? To use those advanced algorithms to be able to analyze and process this data.
And another point that we'll be exploring, you will see this in Inferno. We started using a video projection as well as how to face visibility, because how to get the experience as wide as possible. So, and as well, if I give you a mobile phone to control the performer, how do you know who's doing what and so forth? There's a lot of things that if you're in an installation scenario, a one-to-one, it's very different. Imagine you're 200 or 300 try to control 50 or 60 different performers. So how we create a situation where this is obvious and kind of the information exchange. And we thank all the sponsors as well, like ELEKTRA and the CALQ and the Cube, probably doing a residencies, but at the same time, they are all sponsors to welcome us here during IZEA. And thank you very much for that. So I think now we go to the separate aspect of the presentation. Let the floor to Bill.
So, well, just briefly, my recent work, in fact, there's only two things I will show. Is first the Copacabana machine sex performance, which is a robot-only, more, I would say, like a conventional type of performance where you have robots on a stage doing this little cabaret show. In fact, maybe a few years ago, you were able to have a preview of this work. It was presented during the Nuit Blanche in 2019 on a platform, on a truck, and moving from Place de la Concorde to Place de la Bastille. So that was a very interesting experience for me to be able to install it like that, but also to for the public to show it, to see it in this context. So different situations for the performance. I showed it last week in Athens. but in a more conventional theater space. Because the idea behind Copacabana was to create some kind of cabaret for robots. And the place where I showed it, it was really the perfect sort of theatrical situation for that. So at the opposite spectrum of this type of robot show, I created this other show called Intensive Care Unit, which is maybe a bit less fun in terms of like the behavior of the machines. In this case, I wanted to express what machines could feel if they were sick. So I created this sort of artificial hospital or clinic where you got different machines linked to some kind of artificial support system. And my idea behind this was to just present them and sort of have the public empathize for those robots in a way to be able to project different things. Because what I do is usually very closely related to the human conditions, so that's why I'm sort of making these shows above all.
All right, so my turn. A few upcoming works. One which was almost presented here at IZEA, but it's going to be available at the end of the year. It's called Corridor Salsa. So you probably all experience crossing somebody on the street and you just don't know what to do, how to make your way by the person. So imagine one of these Boston Dynamics robots like Spot or whatever. So instead of having 4 legs, it has 2 legs down and 2 legs on the side. So it's a bit like it evaded some despicable lab, and you have to cross it in the corridor. So, and it's part of a series of work that I do to make Clin d'œil, a pastiche on performance art. So this one, I won't name the names, but you probably recognize them. So basically, you cross the robot and try to pass your way. So again, all the same thing with Bill's and my work is like it's all about the centrality and the co-presence of the machine, and you have to negotiate sharing the space with the object. This is being built just to show that it's more than just computer graphics. You have to go through a lot of iteration to make these things work because they made with small means. I don't have a whole fleet of engineers working for me, but it's getting there, and it's a lot of fun to try to make this work. The other one, which is going to be premiering in 2 different versions, it's basically try to imagine instead of having a whole body, you just have an eye, and it's a kind of talking about surveillance, but more at the same time. The thing with animals is that they're kind of a blank slate, and we subscribe all kinds of anthropocentric behavior to them. So the idea of this object is just doing its thing, and you probably won't be able to decode what it's doing. So I got a whole bunch of them. I made about 15. I got a bunch of white ones and a bunch of black ones. The first white ones, they're more like a chorus. You just walk around and they stare at you. And I got another version which is a bit more intimate. You can sit down with it and it just stares at you. I'm working on having what the robot thinks about you when you sit in the front of the robot, so you can listen to the way it stares at you and what it thinks about you. And finally, the blind robot, which is an old piece, giving the, let's say, resurgence of AI and all kinds of elements. So I'm actually like slowly rebuilding the old installation, try to integrate new technology to make it even more affordable. So I'm trying to transform the experience to make it, let's say, to distribute it more easily than in the package that was done before. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bill and Louis-Philippe. And now our last speaker is Baron Lantaine. You also can discover his work just in front of the tea buffet. And now, Baron Lantaine.
Thank you for being here. I'm Baron Lantaine. I believe I do have a video that should be playing along my talk. Could we start it, please? Anyway, so I'd like to talk about animation and my relation to that as a medium, and how I want to move away from it, or at least change how I work with it. And this is what I've been doing for the past year or so. So it's a work in progress. It's a transition. So I create screen installations and screen sculptures that open as portals to virtual worlds that I create as well. So instead of calling what I do animation, I refer to it as just designing the whole environment, and I then explore it. So I create those environments using different tools. So some of my own that I set up to tie together the other tools, such as game engines that I adapt to my needs, mostly Unreal 5 at the moment, and also 3D animation tools like Blender. So I feel like describing it this way feels like I'm describing what an animator would do, but I don't really relate to that kind of label, and I'm trying to distance myself from it. And even though I've presented a bunch of animated works, I don't like to call those animations or even videos for that matter. So I'm mostly interested in the relation we have with the technology, mostly screens. Screens used to be unidirectional. We used to gather in front of a big screen like we're doing right now. But now we each have our own personalized feed through our phones. Of course, you know all that. So I'm kind of fascinated by how this object has found its place in our life so quickly, and its materiality that we often try to minimize or hide, but I like to showcase it. So I'm interested how we use those devices to access virtual content and interact with it. And also I'm interested in how, what is a virtual world? What is a virtual object? Like how do we define that? So this is what I'm trying to reflect on when I create. And basically, so far, animation has been the container for so I can share that kind of work. And I'm hoping that I can move beyond that rigid container, and so we can access and consume virtual objects in a bit more direct way and more fluid way. So I would like to talk a bit about this older piece of mine. Which it's called Nature Morte. It's from 2017. And this is essentially my first attempt ever at creating an installation. So after moving in Quebec City, I had access to this space. I got some stuff together and I put it there. So since it was just an experiment, I wanted to know, can the installation medium help me in any way? Does it bring me anything else? So obviously I would document my experimentations. And when I was looking back at those images, which were just meant for me as a way to reflect back on what I did, I could not stop myself from just keep playing with those images and creating with the footage. So essentially the artwork is not the installation, but the documentation that I created with it, and that I push further than just being a photographic documentation of the installation. And I'm really interested in this ambiguity, in figuring out which medium that we use becomes the final artwork, or is it a mix of the whole thing. So yeah, the piece, well, the piece that you just watched a few times in a row was just a superposition of the installation itself, the video documentation, and that I see as a form of reality, and then the video itself that becomes its own form of reality or a transitional reality that I like to highlight using data mushing, which breaks the perspective of the image, flattens it a bit, and reveals the pixels of the image. I also consider social media as a form of virtual reality, and I'm kind of interested in how we combine those realities in our daily lives, how we can superpose them using our screens and different devices. So yeah, look, those artworks, those included, are seamless looping animations, which kind of fold onto themselves indefinitely. And when I present them, I'm often asked, like, what's the duration of the file? And I'm kind of annoyed by that question because to me it's irrelevant, and that reveals how this medium is not adapted to my needs, basically. So I don't think I benefit from the strength of time-based media, and I'm not trying to tell a story or present a character. It's just mostly still lifes after all. So I find that animation becomes a compromise in my work, and ideally I would like to showcase my environments and those transitions in a more generative way, and keeping things open where I can just maybe interact with it and explore the imperfections in transitions when I move from one point of view to another. So I'm starting from physical objects or worlds that attempt at recreating a physical world, but then through my interaction with it, it gets distorted and it allows me to reach other kind of effects. So this is kind of what I'm presenting with the piece above here at ICEA. So I'm trying to create those objects using 3D simulations and other generative processes, using softwares that are meant to recreate real world for the needs of visual effects or previs and architectural previs and that kind of stuff. And I'm having a lot of fun trying to push the boundaries of those tools and find sweet spots that push those materials until they get properties of their own, essentially. It's kind of similar to what I've been doing with video and data mushing. So this is a process of trial and error, and where I'm trying to explore a new materiality that can emerge that is really, that emerged from the virtual matter. Well, I call it this way. So it's no longer tied to the physical worlds that it's trying to emulate, essentially. And finally, well, I'm having fun with a virtual camera that also has parameters, and I use this camera as a way to document this phenomenon and those creations. So basically, to get rid of the animation, I'd say I'm trying to get rid of timelines. I'm trying to get rid of all the time frames, the keyframes, I mean, and all the rendering that slows me down. And I want to create systems that I just interact with, essentially. So I split this process in two phases for me. So the first one would be something I would call control, where I just design the tools. I hijack existing technologies. For example, I like to use Discord as a control interface because I have access to it on my pocket and I can interact with my artworks from anywhere. I like to use blockchain and AI as a ways to filter my parameters or filter my interaction with those artworks. And I adapt Unreal 5 for my own needs. So, this process gives me some kind of a complex and fragile open-ended system that is a work in progress and that I can showcase when I present my work. And the idea is that I'm hoping to create for different kind of mediums, different kind of outputs, such as performance, virtual reality, or full dome, or autonomous installations, or even pre-rendered like video captured work, if I wish. But the important part to me is that it's the same interface, it's the same control, it's the same system for everything that I would attempt to do. And the second phase is what I would call play. It's inspired by my relationship with synthesizers. I like the mindset of experimenting with synthesizers, feeling those constraints, and I find that exploring and finding sweet spots and interpolating between different sweet spots with synths, it's very playful, and it allows me to react in real time to the creation, and that's very important to me, and that's what I cannot achieve with keyframes, essentially. So I'm expecting to react to the outcome of when I interact in real time. I have this opportunity to react to what is happening to me and to happening to my creation, essentially. So at the moment, the challenge I'm facing with this, well, I'm interested in more in the process that I'm explaining right now than the output of those systems. So that's one of the challenges. I'm looking for ways to share that better without having to explain it like I'm doing right now. And I want to showcase this entity that lies between me as a creator and the outcome as the artwork. Like I want to show what's in between and showcase it. So it's kind of what I was trying to do here at IZEA in the piece I'm presenting right now by just highlighting the cables and the structure that makes all of this possible. So yes, so thank you very much for listening to me. Thanks to IZEA and ELEKTRA for inviting me for this talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baron. That was a speak talk, eh? Thank you so much to all artists who presented. That was amazing. That was a long, a long one. We continue at 5, which is in 5 minutes. We continue with the panel. Can you put the panel on the slide, please? So we continue with a panel on intersections between artificial life and artificial intelligence. Are we talking about a new species or what? So see you back here in 5 minutes.
If you don't mind, can you please be seated now? Hello, hello. Guys, please sit down. So, Ida and Alain are going to be the moderators of our last session to conclude our journey to Quebec. So we are going to switch back and forth between French and English throughout the session.
You have microphone, yeah? You have water? No? See, yeah, you can have water. And if you want remote control, no? It's not...
Yeah, I think I would just start.
Yeah, okay.
C'est parti pour la dernière session de cet après-midi.
So the last session of our afternoon dedicated to Quebec. So all of you, please don't leave us. We are on until 6 p.m. And we promised you a wonderful journey to Quebec. Did I tell you that the Inferno show is going to take place on Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m.? Did I tell you where it is due to take place? In Cube-Garches. Well done, all of you. It's an exceptional performance, so don't forget. Join them on Friday or Saturday at 8 p.m. in Cube-Garches. Hello, everyone.
Here in the room for the final panel that we are rounding up Focus Quebec with. We have an hour in total. We will speak, I think, around 40 minutes and then have 20 minutes for questions. So really prepare your questions, and because we are really curious to have a conversation back and forth. I think I will just start by introducing people, introducing our fabulous panelists. Thank you so much for coming. At the beginning, we have Irandi Vergara. Irandi is accomplished curator, a writer, and a teacher. Currently an assistant professor at the Faculty of Fine Arts and Communication at McEwan University in Calgary, in Canada. Her main research interests include global art histories, climate responsibilities, curatorial studies, equity, internet cultures, and widespread bias in algorithms. She has such a wide range of interests and expertise. One thing that I just want to mention that I have been enjoying recently is her interest in secrets and privacy, including the secrets we keep or try to keep from the algorithms who eventually perhaps end up knowing more about us and our secret desires than anybody else. Irandi recently joined the ICEA International Board as a chair. So thank you so much for joining and taking time in between all of your meetings. Next to me, we have Victor Drouin. Victor is an artist, a researcher, and a professor in sound creation and philosophy at Cégep du Vieux-Montréal. Aside from his academic work, Victor produces electronic music under the pseudonym, can you pronounce this for me? Victor. Inspired by the micro-minimal scene. Victor is interested in what he calls living sound and the creation of sound creatures, which I'm curious to hear more about, using algorithmic compositional tools. And he does all this in order to explore broader philosophical questions regarding nature and the living. Wait a minute. Justine Aymar, right there, is a visual artist whose works take experiences of deep learning as well as the dialogues between human and machine as a starting point. Justine works with both video, sculpture, and installation, which are media she uses to make these technical aspects of machine and algorithms sensible and tangible to a human experience. Justine is an acclaimed visual artist. Her work has been exhibited internationally. In 2020, she has been artist in residence at the ZKM in Karlsruhe, and she has been part of International Photographic Commission Image 3.0. And last year, she was in residence at the French Space Agency, an artist professor invited at Le Fresnoy in Studio National des Arts Contemporains. Her major artworks are part of national and international public collections. Thank you. Next to Justine, we have Jens Hauser. Jens Hauser is a Paris and Copenhagen-based media studies scholar and art curator, focusing on the interactions between art and technology, transgenre and hybrid aesthetics, with a special focus, this is what I added, on bioart, wetware, and synthetic life. He is currently a professor in history of Karlsruhe Institute of Technology and an affiliated researcher at Copenhagen University Medical Museum. Copenhagen's Medical Museum Museum, and a senior postdoc researcher at the Medical University of Vienna. Next to, over there, next to Justine, we have Franz-Joseph Lapointe. He's both an artist and a scientist with a PhD in evolutionary biology and a second PhD in dance and performance. He practices what he calls paradisciplinarity, a discipline of practicing two disciplines at the same time without one becoming more important than the other. Francois Joseph is currently affiliated at the biology department at the University of Montreal, where he manages the molecular and evolutionary ecology lab. His work as a biologist and performance artist has been exhibited at the Musée des Civilisations, Transmediale, Sci Art Center in New York City, Ars Electronica, Medical Museum in Copenhagen, Science Gallery in London, and the Centre Pompidou in Paris, etc. So, next to me we have Alain Thibault, who is artistic director at ELEKTRA. And me, I'm Ida Toft. I am digital production director at ELEKTRA. So everybody's talking about AI, especially with the new ChatGPT that's coming out and the recursive AI that's becoming more and more kind of unavoidable. And whether we are already tired of talking about this or hearing about these conversations or not, these are here to continue to be. So, but also because Quebec is known as a hub for AI development, and it is something that is very, very present within the art scene in Quebec and Montreal as well. So for us, it is very important that we insert and that we insist on inserting the more critical and artistic perspectives into these conversations that are otherwise very corporate, basically. So that's why we wanted this panel on this topic, and that's why we're so grateful for everybody who are outside of Montreal who are joining to give like new perspectives and ideas, and also everybody who is outside of the field of AI, bringing new ideas and perspective as well to the topic. So I gotta admit that I often find the basic terms that when we talk about artificial intelligence and artificial life, the basic words that we use, like intelligence, humans, life, nature, these are so big terms that in the end I feel like nobody really knows what we are talking about, and the conversations get very slippery. So if we go back to the very title of the panel, are we talking about a new species or not? I wonder if the biology experts in the group can start by talking about what is a new species, for us to think about, does this conversation even make sense?
That's a good question. I teach evolutionary biology, and the first class is always about the definition of what is a species, because there are about 12 different definitions of a species. So if we are human and we are reproducing sexually, we use the biological species concept, meaning that two individuals pertain to the same species if they can produce offspring together that are both viable and fertile. Yet, tigers can interbreed with lions to create ligers. Polar bears interbreed with grizzly bears to create grizzlies. Now we have around Montreal wolf and coyotes to create a new species called a coy wolf. So even the biological species concept is a bit difficult. But if we go outside of eukaryotes or in sexual reproduction, then the species concept is totally different. For bacteria who are reproducing asexually, then we use a total arbitrary concept to define what is a species, which is based simply on the amount of genes that two bacteria share with one another. So we don't call those species, we call those OTUs, or operational taxonomic units, which are basically just like concepts that humans have been using to know how to classify things together. So if we try to define a new planetary species for AI and AL, then we have to decide which species concept we're going to use.
And I can add, because I have a philosophy background, so we in philosophy always try to do definitions of things. So when I saw the title with artificial life, so we have to define what's life and what's artificial. And so artificial, we oppose it to natural usually, but the question can be simple if we're thinking about a human, which is natural and which is alive, obviously. But if we oppose it to, let's say, a robot that is artificial, and we intuitively won't say that it's alive. So we have like the two sides of the spectrum. But if we say, let's say, I take my body and I cut one of my leg and replace it with a robot leg, and with my second leg I replace it with a robot leg, and then my two arms, so I'm still alive even if I have some artificial part. And if I say go further and I will say my heart, I will replace my heart with an artificial one, so I'm still alive, I'm still natural. But when you change organs and you try to go further and further, what's the line that will say, oh, no, you're not alive anymore because you have too many artificial stuff in you? And you can go the opposite side. If you start with like a robot and you put some natural, I don't know, hearts or natural legs, so there's kind of a spectrum of what are we going to define as natural, artificial, and what is really alive? This, for me, it's really hard to have a clear definition. So maybe we're talking more about like half alive. I don't know how to say it. Yeah.
Maybe there is a way out. I mean, you're speaking about philosophy, and the German philosopher Nicole Karafilis came up with the concept of biofacticity, so which is something that is completely bridging naturally and artificial systems, to say that it's on the growth that it depends, and we have a very Aristotelian sense of something that is being moved from outside and something that's moving from within. I think we still phenomenologically are very much imprisoned in this kind of perception, but when you think of something that is a kind of display, that is cells growing, for example, that is a technical kind of setup, and they are growing. I mean, it's a biofact, and there is a kind of need to overcome the distinctions between naturalness and aliveness. I think there are two different terms. So naturalness has to be disentangled from aliveness as such. So I think that also in the title, I mean, artificial, what does it mean? Is it artificial because it's a human construct? And then, of course, the old debate if human is part or not, since the early modern period, exclusion is kind of what Gumbrecht calls as a kind of presence against meaning culture. We're in this meaning culture, we're taking ourselves outside Latourian kind of thought. So what does it mean if artificiality only signifies something that has been created by humans? Is the very way of thinking about artificial intelligence, both applying anthropocentric concepts to both intelligence and to artificiality. in other terms, also intelligence. Why wouldn't we speak about ecosystemic intelligence, like, for example, Gilberto Espasa's robots that come up with the ideas that actually gastrobots are cleaning up humans' mess, and that there's kind of symbiotic distributed intelligence and not just the mimicking of human cognition. So I think that both terms are very problematic. Both intelligence is very problematic and artificiality as such as well.
Thank you.
Yes, I think, as you said, Victor, there is a philosophical idea behind, and what I like about this idea of new spaces is that it's an interesting thought exercise to open new perspectives, and especially beyond the functionality of it, because mostly when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's always have a function, but it's much more about the existence of different beings, different systems that we can consider maybe sometimes as equal as us, to rethink and redefine everything. So I think it's in art much more interesting to consider existence of the object, and also to really open the mind beyond all this functionality of what the system could bring to the society, but just to redefine all this thinking.
I don't want to repeat what has been said. I think one of the agreement is that the terms we use to define these, the categories and terms, and they are not necessarily adequate to define something that is beyond human creation in most cases of all the other forms of life that existed before robots and other forms of agency that has been created by humans. But what we did create was the concepts. And what I'm not hearing, and that's what I want to bring to the table, is these conceptions are indeed arbitrary, and they are human-made, but also they come from a traditional perspective that has to do with European thinkers, coloniality, and other aspects that have defined that these categories have dominated the way we have perceived the world and interacted with everything that surrounds us as moving and beings with the capacity to manipulate and transform nature beyond any other species on the planet, which is all this discussion of the Anthropogene. One thing that we can think about is the concepts that were there prior to European thinkers. For instance, just the different perspective on indigenous communities, indigenous peoples, the way they understand nature, the way they understand life. It's beyond all of these divisions. And I keep remembering a text by, I can't believe her name escaped my mind. Fernandez, a scholar based in Boston, who in 1999 wrote this text called Post-Colonial Media Theory, and questioning the fact that in the media history, critical discussions coming from post-colonial scholars and feminist perspective haven't reached the media history tech world. And I think we have an opportunity now that we have many Western scholars writing about the need to undo these categories and moving towards understandings that go beyond binaries, to go back to the knowledge that has been there for years. That would be a way to start. And without trying to reinvent the wheel that European and Western scholars and philosophers have created, it's probably a time to go back to those knowledge that have already been doing what now we are trying to do.
Thank you. Wow. So moving to a more concrete conversation, perhaps, because I often feel like this tension between do we start by definitions? is definitions like you come to your table and you have to like clean up your desk before you start working? Or is it a distraction like that makes you never come to the conversation or never get to work in the first place? And yeah, I think that maybe we want to move to a more concrete conversation, and I would like to hear about your work, Justine, because you have a really interesting work that you call supranova, supraorganism, in which you studied the bee. You studied a beehive and the behaviors of a beehive, and then you applied the behavior of the beehive to the behavior of your algorithms for your work. And so maybe you can talk about the intentions of this work, and also talking about the tensions or how you translated this from the kind of old school organism, old school species to your algorithm.
Yeah, actually I discovered the artificial life more deeply in 2016 when I met Takashi Ikegami from the University of Tokyo, and we started to generate systems to shift humanoid robots from the human-centered behavior and point of view, and it was a very interesting process, very disturbing and mind-blowing, and we collaborated on many of my works, and I collaborated with also process, and it was super interesting to really get something from the reality, and as you said, having this kind of translation into a system reflection. And I started to think about collective intelligences and how organisms such as supraorganisms like bees, ants, were able to build a kind of organization, society, with communication systems and processes. But I wanted to dive into it through my process, my artistic process. So I worked all by myself, capturing data on the bees' hives, having footage, and after I really took the time to observe the evolution of one bee swarm. It's super interesting because the bees are the reflect of our ecosystems. They are tiny ecosystems in itself with hundreds of individuals, and but they have also like a proper common life and way to react. And after observing and collecting some data, we were able to create a software. And it was super handmade. We just were in the residence at the ZKM, starting to label the bees, to teach the machine how to recognize them and to deduct speeds, data, IDs. But at the same time, we were generating new frames of the footage, generating like new bees and exploring the glimpses of what could be the future of the species, and retracking the bees from the generative network which analyzed my footage. So it was super interesting in the installation to consider that every move, every color, every movement was coming from a kind of organic programming, and it was generated by this observation, almost like a documentary thing, but in the end it becomes more abstract. And in my work there is always this idea of embodiment, how you embody a software into a hardware, so the ghost in the shell, and it was kind of magical to see the glass sculpture starting to get animated by this kind of computer life. But I also made a version of this work at Le 104 during the Nemo Biennale with a live stream directly into the bees' hive. So it was another process, maybe more living, following the season, following the luminosity and the behavior in real time, which was more complicated because when you get into the winter, the bees are slowing down. So the installation was also a kind of a witness of what was happening in the season, and it was also a kind of crazy experience. But for me, I really learned by doing things in the process.
Wow, cool. Thank you.
Can I react to this?
Yes, please.
Okay, first of all, my daughter would need to be here because today is the standardized exam in high school in Quebec, and the question is, c'est l'examen du ministère en secondaire 2, and the question is, are insects important? And so she would then add a sentence at the end of the dissertation saying that you can make art with bees and not only pollination. So, but going back to superorganisms, and when we refer to superorganism, we usually think about social insects such as bees, ant colonies, or termites. In mammals, the naked mole rat also is a social animal. But if we extend that to multi-specific association, we are a superorganism because we live with a bunch of other living species that are on our skin and inside of our gut. And therefore, we behave as a superorganism as well, not from a single species with different castes and role, but we are a superorganism that instead of calling us a symbiont, we call this a holobiont now, with thousands of bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms that are known to affect our behavior. You all know the case of Toxoplasma gondii, who when a young kid has a heavy dose of Toxoplasma, they're more likely to engage into dangerous sports because you don't fear the danger. And so if one species can affect your behavior, think about all the other parasites and the viruses that are living inside of us.
It's interesting that you say that. We just finished an exhibition co-curated by Lucy Strecker, Thomas Feuerstein, Judith Reichert, and myself in Vienna called Holobient, Life is Other. That was the title. And precisely it was highlighting this concept put up by Lynn Margulis in 1991. So this holobiontic being. And so there's asking also the question that my colleagues, and you know them very well in Copenhagen, with the exhibition Mind the Gut. So not Mind the Gap, but Mind the Gut, within which you have been also, I think, developing a little bit your practice to actually think about the gut and brain axis, that you eat what you are, you know, and you are what we eat, and vice versa, and how far there is this kind of cognition that is influenced by other than human species. So that is asking again the question, what is then intelligent behavior? And we had this question when we were also focusing on our festival with my colleagues at RIXI, at Riga, and we wanted to talk about green studies on the one hand, but also about a kind of artificial intelligence, but ecologically based. And there are a lot of artworks that have been around, having simulated narratives by artificial intelligence system, evoking possible futures, making scenarios that are between visionary and absurd, but just delegating this responsibility to other than human intelligence, so-called artificial intelligence. So we came up with something, because we cannot just run behind this kind of hype that is becoming a bit embarrassing in terms of what it means in terms of PR agency and so on. So we came up with NAI, and everybody actually did submit papers to a festival that called not artificial intelligence, but naturally artificial intelligence. So it's adding the N finally was a way to say, well, is there any kind of inherent technicity in other human entities and organisms that are intelligent, not in our sense of mimicking human cognition again, but they're intelligent as such. And the NAI also being both a kind of negation of the hype. And out of this came also a non-profit organization that is commonly seeing its birth in Karlsruhe, and it's called NAIA. So it's naturally artificial intelligence art. So it's interesting how at least we tried to subvert this hype and to actually add this ecosystemic value, even with reference to biosemiotics. And in biosemiotics, it's not just about sign language through language, but about signals. So it's a very materiality of the sign, while very much in languages and computer languages, it's the degree of abstraction and parallelization, which is key. But here it's more about the particularity of the materiality of the signifier. So you have biosemiotics, which is not about what the message is, about communication, and it's more about what is interpreted, and one organism is interpreting another. So it reverses this kind of flow that normally you have a message that is sent out that acts something, but maybe that is not as important what we're sending out. What's important is what the other organism is interpreting, and this is the concept of biosymiotics. So I think within this network, I mean, of thought, it's very interesting to actually boil it down a little bit and to actually really look behind also the economic and political interest of this field.
I'm like trying to process all this in the moment. Because I'm thinking that artificial intelligence has also different definitions. Like, are we talking about, if we think of something as intelligent, is it in the interpretation? You know, is it like the Turing model, which is like, oh, we interpret this as intelligent, so therefore it is intelligent, or is it like inherently intelligent, or is artificial intelligence simply because it's like certain processes, like there's a certain function that it does? So.
But your project, I mean, what you mentioned is it's about being inspired by biomimicry in a certain way, to listen to other than human intelligence and then to program your piece accordingly. So how would you feel that you pick up this? I mean, it's social intelligence, but is it intelligence that you're picking up in the very notion of artificial intelligence?
I mean, as we speak of intelligence, intelligence is something related to the human brain, because it's something to always that you connect to a certain evaluation, like you measure intelligence of the people. So it's a kind of thing which is not fitting to maybe the observation. But what I was trying to do in this work, it was really to get a feeling, to get a sense of what was happening and how they were communicating and how they were also reacting to our presence as humans. And yeah, I would say that I love to work with complex systems. I love to work with unpredictability, and I always try in my work to reproduce a system that you don't know where you will go in the end. And yeah, starting for a biomimetic system, observing, computing, but in the end, it brought me to a very different, super abstract organism, maybe also because of the output. It was glass, it was sensors, motors, and in the end, it's a totally different feeling when you enter the installation. So starting from this observation of nature, but going into somewhere else and get a little bit lost on the way. But I think it's also like a fact to being able to control the source of this computation, because we talk about artificial intelligence, but what I like in the process is that today we can deduct a lot of things with the powerness of the computation, and we can see something which is not visible from the human eyes and human mind, and I'm interested into that, and to go beyond into something more maybe sometimes chaotic, but which reflects something happening in the world.
Yeah, I can add something, because we can think about our relationship in an ecosystem with living system, and we can observe how we behave too when we see an organism which is, I don't know, an animal or a system, and we can see that sometimes our behavior, I think it can take forms that are similar to when you see an animal. When you see like these forms, intelligent artificial is growing. So we can maybe have too some vocabulary that are emerging when we see those kind of artificial intelligence. I have an example maybe that is going to be more clear with this example. But maybe we have our phone, and we're going to say our phone died. Sorry, our phone died, and it's not broken; it died. So we have a kind kind of a relationship with artificial intelligence that are similar to some of the relationship that we have with animals. So the question that we ask at the beginning, how we define life, we could say, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to us to be alive? And how we behave with artificial life and artificial intelligence. And if we behave the same, then there's something happening there, because some people even can fall in love with an algorithm. So we are seeing appearing those kind of emotion, of interaction that are really similar that the one we have with natural, with animals and stuff. And with my experiment that I did with my sound creature, it was really special, because I work with Sofiane Audry, and I'm trying to develop some algorithms to make some sound, making like alive and growing and changing and kind of autonomous way of feeling and growing the sound. And we work with reinforcement learning. So I have this, I can explain really quickly because it's a bit complicated, but I have this synthesizer which is controlled by kind of an artificial agent, and there's a parameter space of maybe 5-6 dimensions. So this artificial agent is moving and knobs by himself, and I'm telling him or it, I don't know, to when I like the sound and when I dislike the sound. So you have kind of a relationship that is building with this kind of growing kind of something, agent, artificial agent, that at the end, it knows you, it knows what you like, and it knows what you don't like. And the thing will play sound that you told him that this is kind of a sound that I like and this is kind of sound that I don't like. So there's kind of something happening at the end, and you start to use names that are related to the biological and creature and stuff, and you don't really realize it. You're starting to say, that's a very Quebec word, but I was calling it the bibit. Only Quebec people can understand. There's no really, I don't know, traduction for this, a translation for this in English, but I was giving it a name because I was feeling I was interacting with something that was kind of alive, you know? So when you think about the definition of how you define it, maybe sometimes we should shift this to what does it mean to be human and how do we behave? And we are seeing some emerging behaviors because machines are getting more intelligent and are gaining more interaction and everything. So I think maybe you had this kind of feeling with the bees of kind of, or in your practice with interacting with those kinds of algorithms that are so powerful and are so big that you kind of interacting the same way you would do with like a dog or with a cat, kind of taming and kind of trying to know each other and kind of these kind of behavior. Yeah.
I have one kind of provocative question. And it came from reading your work. So, because this is what art has always been doing, like portraying, mimicking humans. Isn't that what art has always been doing? And now we are doing the same using contemporary technologies. Is there a value in thinking about artificial intelligence as really alive, as really being something more than what art has always been doing? Is there a political reason to think like, yeah, this is really alive? Is there something that is it a metaphor that's doing some political work? I think I'm thinking especially about your work.
It's not easy to trace a line, you know. It's at the end, I think it's how you interact and how you feel, you know, and what's your building and what's you dealing, some kind of interaction that you do. So if there's something political, I don't know, but we're building ecosystemic relationship with agents that are artificial and agents that are natural, and we are, and it's becoming more and more in our life, I think, and we don't really realize it because it's subtle, but it's entering like our life, and it's changing the way we interact with each other, and we interact with object too. So we have like this kind of building. Yes, it's political, of course, because there are some people behind them that have the power to influence a lot. So this is really problematic, and we can ask about this kind of thinking of who has the power in deciding what's going to be like influencing us. So maybe that's a thing we can ask also, because yeah.
If you ask, it's a transhistorical feature. I like Jessica Riskin's book, Genesis Redux, about artificial life, history of artificial life, and precisely not taking so much into account this very not so interesting period after 87, all this creation of so-called artificial life and art related to this based on the Los Alamos and Christopher Langton's definitions of life, not it is that life as it could be. So it's interesting that she is interesting on the historical part of it, the automata, the Swiss automata, all this automata of voice synthesis, analog voice synthesis, or the hydraulic automata in Byzance and so on. So there is this transhistoricity, of course, of staging aliveness, which is, of course, a central feature. But coming back to Langton, it's interesting because at some point when he defines what artificial life is, and this 87 manifesto that has been repeated by artists like parrots, you know, like not like it was but like as it could be. I mean, he says that it's natural to think to extract the functioning of from the original biological wetwork, and what's he saying? And he wants to get rid of all this petri dishes and lab paraphernalia to get the pure thing of the systems, the patterns of life in a certain way. And it's very interesting that in this very text never has been coming up that he actually misspells the word carbon in his very manifesto. So he in his very text, if you read this, you will find it. I mean, obviously nobody found it before I flagged it up, that he was misspelling carbon and amputating carbon by its R. So it has 4 arms like the carbon atom, which is structuring our life. So I made up this distinction between the carbophobics and the carbophiles, so the carbofetishist. And it's quite interesting because you have really huge struggles about this. Does it need to be carbon-based? Does it need to be protein-based? Or is it about behavior? Is it about irritability? So you have so many criteria of an epistemologically based notion of what aliveness is about, some of which are related to behavior, and this is what Christopher Langton's is about, and what is artificial intelligence also about. And then there's metabolism, there's reproduction, there's protein-based, there's dynamic stability, and so on, which is, of course, systems that need a certain materiality. So it's about media adequacy in a certain way. So with which kind of media and materiality you depict, simulate, imagine, manipulate, or imagine, simulate living systems. And a Montreal-based kind of anecdote, because you guys are responsible for this anecdote. There was a 2004 conference in Montreal, and we just had a book presentation 2 days ago with a Brazilian composer, Eduardo Rec Miranda. And I had a kind of fight with him at this time because we were all in this wet biological art and how far this relates to the dry, the wet, the soft, software, hardware, wetware, how this can become convergent. And he was complaining about it's so difficult to program randomness with my computers and never get there and so on. maybe you should just hook up your fucking machines with real biological organisms, because in nature the noise is for free, you know. That's why I'm asking about the bees, you know. I cannot maybe do this, is this ethical to do this? And then I saw him when one of my students in Copenhagen came up with a master's thesis on feminist science philosophy and the slime mold. And I looked at this Creeping Garden film, and who was in this film? The same composer. And said, oh, now I'm making musical compositions with a symphonic orchestra and slime mold. So he actually was doing this. So what I want to say, there is a kind of progressive convergence between hardware, software, and wetware. And I think a lot of very interesting works are emerging precisely in those works who are combining all the aspects of aliveness, from behavioral systems to cognition, if you want, but also just metabolics and biosemiotics in the very simple term. And I think there is something lying very, very precious, because then we think of carbon-based and silicon-based technologies not as separate. And just, yeah, I would like to maybe ask what you think about that, because your work in the lab is very much about using digital technologies to actually make this mapping. But it's, again, it's maybe the definition of biomedia, as pointed out by Jürgen Thacker in 2004, which is consisting not on the simulation of kind of lifelike systems, but on wet, dry cycles. That is his definition of biomedia.
Well, that's interesting, because when I started my PhD in dance, I didn't want to dance. I wanted to create the choreography in silico. It was so difficult that I've decided, okay, I will try to do it in vitro. It was also very, very difficult. So I said, oh, let's do it in vivo. And you look at the actual choreographer that we all have inside of us, which was my DNA. So you were talking about hardware, software, and wetware, and we're talking about in silico, in vitro, in vivo. And when all of this come together, then it becomes interesting to look at the friction between these different things. And because it's funny that all we talk about, and I want to go back to what you were saying, we still want to stick to, and you just said, Victor, where do you draw the line? We want to stick to a definition. What is life? What is bio? What is intelligence? What is natural? What is artificial? What is, and it comes from a binary point of view. What is male? What is female? And the problem with that is that it's not the real world. It's really messy. And when I go back to a book I read when I was doing my PhD in biology, which was entitled La raison classificatoire, so classificatory reason. I think the author was, I'm not sure of the first name, Patrice or Fabrice Thor. It's all about that we need to classify things in specific boxes. And the history of biology is all about these. The history of biology, of course, is Eurocentric, but it's also eukaryocentric, based on sexual reproduction. And we build these genealogy, these phylogenies, when there's only vertical transfer. And bacteria, they share genes by horizontal transfer. So there was the cover of the New Scientist magazine probably 20 years ago, which was, there was a tree on top of the cover of the magazine with the title, Darwin Was Wrong. And Darwin was wrong based on the work of Ford Doolittle at Halifax University, who said that the tree of life has to be a coral of life or a network of life. And Darwin proposed that we all are stemming from a single genealogy. That cover was really the best seller because all the creationists bought this because they say, Darwin was wrong, Darwin was wrong. That was not the thing. It was not that evolution doesn't exist. It's that we still stick to this very simple-minded classification that has to be binary. You're in that group or you're in the other group, but not one or the other. So I like the messy part. I like fuzzy logic. I like fuzzy classification. I like the mess we all live in, and I stand with you on this, that we need to move away from the binary.
And let's think about the difference between the epistemological, the definitions, and then how that impacts the actions, how that impacts politics. That will tie back to it as a question about politics, because it's not like in science, in labs, artists have different agents and their work has a different reach. But what about the policies of exploitation of the land that don't consider or don't care about what life is? They just destroy because there is a source here to be exploited. And what are the implications then of changing conceptions that go beyond definitions? But because in the world we live in, it's not about definition, it's about actions and how that impacts life of other beings and life in this planet in general.
Question.
Thank you very much. Yves Duterre, I work in artificial life. It's a long time. Somebody. And how to draw a line between life and simulating system, chemistry, and things like that is very complex. And perhaps for me, I have found a publication in December. I think it's one of the most incredible paper since Carl Sims in 1904. I think everybody knows Carl Sims, artificial creature. And this publication from Brett Kagan, an Australian. The name is published in the Neuron Review. In vitro neurons learn and exhibit sentience when embodied in a simulated game world. They develop a matrix of electronic device, and they grow real embryo human neurons on that layer. And they can control some signal going from a simulator to the real neuron, and they have an input, the output of the neurons, which at the beginning is chaotic. And in the loop, so it is an hybrid, a chimera, an hybrid between the real neurons, human, of the brain, and a chip. And they put in the loop the simulator of the Pong. Everybody knows the Pong game. And I cannot explain in very shortly how the fitness, how the evolution of the neurons work, but after some time, the system is able to anticipate the position, the output of the neuron, the real neuron, anticipate the position of the ball in order to have a reward corresponding to its prediction. And I think it's currently there is a lot of labs that will try to reprogram that kind of system. And for me, since Carl Sims' publication in SIGGRAPH in '94, it is the equivalent in a big step. And what kind of creature is it for you? Real neuron growing on a chip, electronic chip, and doing a behavior that we can qualify of intelligent. This is prediction of actions. And I think that we will see in the next year, because we see ChatGPT and other systems running on electronic, on the data center, things like that. Okay, and we call that artificial intelligence. Okay, it realizes cognitive task. But here this is not synthetic biology. This is not manipulating a gene in order to obtain something from the living system. It's a kind of hybrid between life and computer technology. Can you precise your how do you feel that?
Do we have a quick answer for this? Because time is running out. Is there any kind of quick responses?
Just thinking of a piece mirrored by Symbiotica, which is taking this up precisely and to have embodied cognition and to actually see in how far it makes a difference if you have to just simulate it, if you have real neurons in a real space. I mean, this is an example how the arts dealt with this kind of problems, maybe. It's a piece, Saran Barrage, that you may look up.
Thank you so much. Time ran really fast. Alain wants to finish off with a few words.
Merci à vous tous.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you to our panelists for having accepted our invitation. And thank you very much to the Forum des Images for having hosted this event, IZEA, and for having welcomed the exhibition presented by a dozen Quebec artists until Sunday.
Canadian Embassy for the other exhibition presentation around Art Game at 7 p.m. So vous êtes tous invités.
You are all invited. It's a curatorship by Nathalie Bache from Montreal. Thank you very much. Thank you.